Hello everyone, Dr. Polaris here. While today neornithine birds are incredibly numerous and diverse, ranging from ostriches to hummingbirds and inhabiting every continent, this was not always the case, with the staggering diversity that we can observe in the Holocene largely being a product of the KPG extinction event 66 million years ago. This ecological disaster wiped out all other members of Avialae, therefore allowing the previously marginal neornithine birds to explode in terms of diversity during the early Cenozoic. Indeed, while phylogenetic studies have consistently recovered a Cretaceous origin for the group roughly 100 million years ago, definitive neornithine fossils from this period are extremely rare, with there currently being only 4 confirmed genera that all hail from the Maastrichtian at the very end of the Cretaceous. Neornithines possess notable diagnostic traits, which include toothless beaks, a keeled sternum and fused wing digits, and can be divided into 2 broad clades. These are the paleognaths, or old jaws, a name which has turned out to be a misnomer, and includes most of the often large modern flightless birds, such as ostriches, cassowaries and rheas, although the modest kiwis and still volant tinamous are part of this group as well. Although hypothesised to have diverged during the first half of the Cretaceous, no Mesozoic representatives have been uncovered thus far. The second major clade of neornithines are the neognaths, which encompass the duck and chicken-like birds of Galoanserae, as well as the incredibly diverse Neo-Aves, which includes all other modern birds. As this video will be examining the early relatives of waterfowl, I'll leave discussions of early Neo-Aves for a future episode. Relatively recent findings have confirmed that members of Galoanserae were indeed present during the Late Cretaceous, with the most important being the discovery of the genus Asteriornis from the Maastrichtian of Belgium. This small, quail-sized animal is known from a thankfully almost complete skull, as well as fragments of the leg bones and a radius. Weighing roughly 400 grams or 14 ounces, Asteriornis was a relatively long-legged terrestrial bird that dwelt in a subtropical coastal environment, where it likely fed on seeds, fallen fruit and invertebrates. Its skull possessed a somewhat rounded beak, and displayed features found in both modern Galliforms and Anseriformes, indicating that the genus may have resembled the common ancestor of both groups. However, in life, Asteriornis would have far more strongly resembled the living chicken-like Galliforms, and some recent studies have found that it may indeed have been closer to that group, making its nickname of Wonder Chicken all the more accurate. Another far more contentious putative Maastrichtian Galoanseran is Vegavis, containing 3 species. This genus was native to the Lopez de Bertadano formation of what is now the James Ross archipelago of Antarctica between 69 and 68 million years ago. Vegavis was a specialised foot-propelled diving bird that would have somewhat resembled a modern loon, possessing an elongated spear-like beak and relatively dense bones. Feeding on fish and marine invertebrates, this genus was about the size of a living common merganser, with a mass range falling between 1 and 2 kilograms. While initially classified as an Anseriform close to modern ducks and geese, the taxonomic position of Vegavis has, over the past 2 decades, been highly unstable, with the genus regarded as a basal ornithurine, a crown group bird outside of Galoanserae, or, most recently, as a neognath of uncertain placement. This is due to Vegavis possessing a mosaic of basal and derived features shared between Galoanserae and members of Neo-Aves, making its exact relationships unclear. It therefore may still be an early relative of waterfowl, although the issue is far from settled. It lived alongside a variety of other foot-propelled diving birds, including the potentially flightless Polornis and Pujatopouli, which is currently the oldest known member of Neo-Aves, being a very early example of the clade Aquornithes, which contains diverse water birds such as loons, penguins, storks and pelicans. Another potential Maastrichtian Anseriform related to ducks and geese was the genus Teviornis from the Nemegt formation of Mongolia circa 70 million years ago, which is known from a single specimen consisting of a badly crushed partial right forelimb. Living alongside famous non-avian dinosaurs such as Tarbosaurus, Gallimimus and Saurolophus, Teviornis has quite consistently been found to be a member of Presbyornithidae, a family of stem Anseriformes distantly related to modern ducks, geese and screamers. These animals were long-legged, long-necked waterfowl with flat, duck-like beaks that were adapted for filter feeding in bodies of fresh water. It's also worth pointing out that other putative Maastrichtian presbyornithids have been identified from Mongolia and the Hell Creek Formation of the western United States, including the mysterious genus Stygianetta, which was recently featured in Prehistoric Planet 2, but was described in an unpublished 2001 doctoral thesis by Thomas Allen Stidman, and has unfortunately received very little attention since then. So, while Anseriformes clearly first appeared during the Late Cretaceous, they were not especially common or diverse, while none were close relatives of modern forms. However, this would all change in the aftermath of the Chicxulub bolide impact 66 million years ago. With their semi-aquatic freshwater habits, high endothermic metabolisms, and precocial offspring with fast growth rates, Anseriformes were well placed to survive the KPG extinction event, and survive they did, alongside their more terrestrial galliform cousins. Like many of the animal groups that made it into the Paleocene, Anseriformes underwent an extensive diversification event, producing a whole host of forms with often strange combinations of features not seen in living species. The lanky presbyornithids survived into the Cenozoic, and were initially widespread and numerous, with the type genus Presbyornis being a perfect example. Native to North America during the late Paleocene and early Eocene, this genus would have resembled a duck-flamingo hybrid, with elongated stilt-like hind limbs and a narrow, slender, dabbling beak. Standing about 1 metre or 3 feet 3 inches tall, these were highly gregarious waterfowl that lived in large flocks by the sides of subtropical rivers and lakes, a fact demonstrated by the masses of fossilised individuals recovered from bone beds. While widespread during the Eocene, most presbyornithids had died out by the end of the period, with a notable exception of those in Australia. Here the family persisted until the early Miocene circa 22 million years ago, in the form of the genus Willaru, which, unlike other members of the group, was well adapted for a terrestrial lifestyle, and possessed bony spurs on the forelimb similar to modern screamers. These would have been utilised to bludgeon rivals over territorial disputes or for mating rights. Aside from presbyornithids, other basal well-known Anseriformes include the genus Conflicto from the early Paleocene of Antarctica, which lived only 500,000 years or so after the KPG extinction event. This basal Anseriform was a long-legged, slender animal, somewhat resembling a stretched goose, with an elongated beak similar to that of modern waterfowl but narrower. It was almost certainly a wading herbivore, being by far the largest animal in its post-apocalyptic ecosystem, which was in a state of recovery after the Chicxulub impact. This suggests that Conflicto survived the extinction event and continued on into the Danian stage of the Paleocene. The discovery of this genus also demonstrated that a duck or goose-like bill developed at an early stage of Anseriform evolution, which is also confirmed by the presence of similar beaks in presbyornithids. Prior to this, it was assumed that the common ancestor of all modern waterfowl possessed shorter, pointed beaks, similar to those of screamers, which represent the most basal living Anseriformes, while the Cretaceous ancestors of waterfowl almost certainly had beaks more like those of galliforms and were leggy, largely herbivorous waders. Screamers, or more formally anhimids, are a Cenozoic group and are not unchanged living fossils. Thus, they probably developed their superficially galliform-like beaks independently, perhaps from filter-feeding ancestors. Interestingly, the late Paleocene genus Anachronornis from Wyoming possessed a galliform-like narrow-pointed beak, while also having skeletal traits in common with ducks and geese, demonstrating that basal Anseriformes could display a complex mosaic of anatomical features. Other early Cenozoic genera experimented with quite different niches, which was certainly the case with the large swan-sized Naranbulagornis from the late Paleocene of Mongolia. This genus was a stronger swimmer than other early Anseriformes, in many ways presaging the development of similar adaptations in the later Anatids. Speaking of living Anseriformes, while older studies found the screamers of Anhingidae and the Australian magpie goose family Anatidae to have originated during the late Cretaceous, this now seems unlikely, with more recent analyses finding an Eocene point of divergence for these groups. Similarly, although anatids only definitively appear in the fossil record during the Oligocene, they too probably first emerged during the late Eocene, before undergoing a massive diversification event, likely due to the extinction of the presbyornithids outside of Australia by the end of the Eocene. Thanks for watching, everyone. The next episode will be covering a group that I can't believe hasn't been covered on this channel yet, with this being the troodontid paravians, perhaps the closest relatives of avialae. See you again soon. Cheerio.